at 11:30. If you're just joining us, Supreme Court of Canada ruling this morning against the federal government's impact assessment law. 5 out of 7 judges found most of it, not all of it, but most of it to be unconstitutional, saying ultimately what the law tries to do is regulate activities that are not within the federal government's jurisdiction. They are within provincial jurisdiction. It's overreach, is essentially what they said. It's a 204-page opinion that was released today. In it, it says, even if this court were to accept Canada's submission that the defined effects within federal jurisdiction are in fact within federal jurisdiction, these effects do not drive this scheme's decision-making powers. Went on to say the impacts considered in Bill C-69, including a range of environmental and social factors.
Oh, is Bill C-69 like an environmentalist bill?
Jonathan Wilkinson joins us now. As I say, he is the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. Minister, thanks so much for being here today.
It's a way to control money.
No, thank you.
Yeah, like they always make, Trudeau always makes bills to try to control money.
This is unconstitutional. What's the federal government's response?
Well, I think we need to step back and look at...
Oh yeah, did you know Russia's already testing out their own bomb drills and stuff, their sirens and stuff like that?
Environmental impact.
Yeah.
And that, there is a shared area of responsibility with respect to the environment between federal government and provinces and territories.
Yeah, after the Duma chemical attacks in 2018, they were anticipating World War III, and Russia was telling citizens what to take to the bomb shelter. You want to know what America's state TV was?
I want to make sure
that it complies with the court's decision. But I will tell you, as a former Minister of the Environment, that's the way we implemented the Act anyway. Of course, it has to relate to federal jurisdiction. That is the whole point of having a federation. There is a federal responsibility and there is a provincial responsibility.
Yeah, but if that's what you based the Act on, as you say, you were the minister at the time, you missed. If they're saying that you put a lot of things in here that aren't federal jurisdiction, the majority of it, the vast majority of the Act that you brought in is overreach. So if that's how you drew up the bill, what happened?
Well, I wouldn't agree with what you just said. But the Act, as it is structured, needs to be, some of the language needs to be tweaked so that it is actually more closely tethered to the areas of federal jurisdiction that include things like fish and fish habitat, greenhouse gas emissions, species at risk.
I was just going to tell you that one thing.
Indigenous peoples. But as I say,
when Russia was telling citizens what to take to the bomb shelter, American citizens was telling people about a porn star, showing the difference between how government view their people from different countries.
That will continue to be the case going forward. But we will make the appropriate tweaks to the legislation to ensure it complies with the direction of the court.
So in terms of timeline here, this has been going around since 2019. It's been tied up in legal battles. That was the first one. How quickly do you think your government will respond and try and get this bill put into a form that might work?
So, the ruling came out this morning. We want to take the appropriate time to digest it and to then develop the appropriate amendments. So it's hard to give a specific time frame, but I would say that, we do want to do it expeditiously. It's important that everybody have clarity with respect to what those amendments are going to be. At the end of the day, whether it's the province of Alberta or the province of Nova Scotia, we all share a common interest in finding pathways to ensure that the project can move ahead in a timely way. But that requires that they respect the rights of Indigenous peoples. That requires that there is environmental sustainability as part of the assessment of those projects. And so, my hope is that we can move forward quickly. We, of course, will have conversations with our counterparts in the provinces and territories, including through mechanisms like the Alberta Canada Working Group that is ongoing right now.
We spoke with Andrew Leach, who is an economics and law professor here at the University of Alberta, and he was talking about going forward. If you're a project developer, this adds more uncertainty to the situation. We've heard from callers here today saying, what about going back to, however, once this all started back in 2019, the uncertainty there. How much are we putting at risk in terms of investment and development and projects that we know we need, even if it's a green energy project at this point? The uncertainty that's built in around this, and it will continue because of this. How much of a concern is that for you and your department?
Well, uncertainty is important, but I would caution folks not to overstate this. At the end of the day, the architecture of the Act remains in place. There are some tweaks to the legislation that have to happen, and in the interim, projects will continue to proceed through the existing system. But of course, we will be very focused on ensuring that we are taking the court's direction in terms of focus on areas of federal responsibility. But I would say that the overarching sort of architecture remains in place. And we will continue to see the project moving through the process. So people shouldn't overstate this. But at the end of the day, of course, we want to get this done in a manner that people have 100% clarity going forward. But my anticipation is it will not have significant impact on projects.
Is that the Foothills Hospital?
Minister, I appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much for your
there's
time.
a sign that says Foothills
No,
Medical.
thank you. That's Jonathan Wilkinson, who is Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, and I imagine he's pretty busy today. We only had a few minutes, but I think that's the expected take from the federal government. It's a loss, but it's not that big of a loss. It's just some tweaking. We'll just have to change the language a little bit, make sure that it aligns a little bit better with what the Supreme Court said. They're not going to come out and say, "Oh yeah, we blew it. This was a complete debacle." And you know what? The Supreme Court didn't say it was a complete debacle. They said, in large part, this is in fact unconstitutional, right? And it reaches into provincial jurisdiction. It goes too far. So it definitely is a rebuke. It's a check on the federal government and what they're trying to do with this legislation. So they at the very least, they will have to go back and rework it and make it align with what the Supreme Court said was out of line, which is essentially you're sticking your nose in areas that you shouldn't be. You need to stay out of provincial jurisdiction and let provinces make their own decisions. So there are some pieces of this that still apply to, yes, that's federal jurisdiction. And cited in the ruling is, if we're talking about federal money, if we're talking about federal land, then yeah, federal jurisdiction is definitely there. But if not, those rules around jurisdiction change, and the federal government needs to respect that and stay out of provincial jurisdiction. Brian in Edmonton, you're on the air. Hi, Brian.
Morning, Shane. I don't know if I've ever heard a Liberal guy say I was wrong.
Well, he came close.